attention. It is my honor today to introduce to you our fourth and final finalist for the position of president of Crowder College, Dr. Beatriz Joseph. Dr. Joseph is currently the Vice President of College Services at Palo Alto College, which is a part of the Alamo College District in San Antonio, Texas. She has held that position since October 2009. In that position, she is the Chief Administrative Officer at Palo Alto College, and she leads a division composed of 78 full-time equivalent professional support staff. She also manages the institutional budget of over $30 million in public funding. Dr. Joseph received her Bachelor of Science in Business Administration at Southeast Missouri University, where she was a Fulbright Scholar. From there, she obtained her Master's in Management Studies from the University of Waukega, pretty close, in New Zealand. She obtained her Doctorate of Education in Higher Education from the University of Georgia. Since obtaining her doctorate, she has attended the Harvard Institute of Educational Management, and she was recently selected for an Aspen Presidential Fellowship, which identifies and empowers a network of exceptional leaders capable of enacting transformational change throughout the nation's community college system. This is a 10-month fellowship delivered in collaboration with the Stanford Educational Leadership Initiative. In 2018, Dr. Joseph was one of 3 finalists for the position of president of Palo Alto College. Dr. Joseph is married with 2 sons, one who's in his 3rd year of medical school and one who just graduated with his bachelor's degree. Dr. Joseph has also authored several publications in regard to higher education, and it's my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Beatriz Joseph.
Is that working? There you go. Thank you. Thank you very much for being here this afternoon. I am sure I am the last thing between you and the beginning of the Thanksgiving break. So I am doubly grateful that you decided to show up this afternoon. So I am thankful to the Board of Trustees and to the search committee for giving me the opportunity to be here today to talk with you about the opportunity to be your next president. So a little bit about myself beyond what was just mentioned. I have been in higher education for 26 years as an advocate of higher education, in particular community colleges. I truly believe in the mission of community colleges and in our role to ensure that those who we serve, students and community, can avail themselves of the opportunity of a better life through education. I am a graduate of SEMO, so just in case some of you are wondering, what in the world is she interested in Crowder College? So let me tell you why. I am, as I said, a graduate of SEMO, so is my husband. My eldest son is a graduate of SLU. And so I have been connected to Missouri in one way or another for several years. My son lived in St. Louis for several years when he was going to school. And I was mentioning to Dr. Farnsworth this morning, he's finishing medical school this year and interviewing for residencies. And one of the places that he's considering is WashU. He loves St. Louis and the time that he's been there. So keep your fingers crossed. So I lived, after we graduated from SEMO, my husband and I wanted to travel the world. At that point in our lives, you could pick up and go anywhere, right? So we had a friend who lived in New Zealand and had said, this is a beautiful country, you have to come out and see it. So guess what? We packed our bags and away we went. So we lived in New Zealand and Australia for several years. During that period of time, both our sons were born. Michael, who is the one who is graduating from medical school in May, and Christopher, who is now a first-year medical student in Dallas. So we spent a few years both in New Zealand and Australia. I started my career in higher education as a faculty member. I have been a faculty member in 2-year and 4-year institutions in different states, different systems, different countries. And I can tell you that from that experience, one thing that I know for sure is that people, no matter where they come from, they want one thing, and that is a better life for themselves and their families. So this is the world of community colleges. That's what we're here for, to impact lives. Today at lunch, Michelle actually mentioned why she loved to work at Crowder. And her answer was, we impact lives. And that's what a community colleges are doing and are supposed to do. So after we lived in New Zealand for a few years, we came back to the States, and I went to school at the University of Georgia, where I got my doctorate degree. I was in Georgia for a few years, and then we moved to Alabama, and it was all really a professional move for my husband, who is a faculty member. So I do have get a lot of information about faculty and their hopes and dreams for their students, and the role that we as administrators play in allowing them to help them fulfill the students' dreams. So after I lived in Alabama, then we moved to Texas, where I live and work now. I started most of my career beyond being a faculty member was in institutional research, and I don't know if he's here, there you go. In institutional research, I love numbers, I love data, but if there's one thing that I have learned through the years is that there's a story behind each number, and that we need to make a point of making sure that we understand the story behind the number. If students come back, why did they come back? If they don't come back, why don't they come back? And it is our job collectively, not just the job of the president or the IR person or the faculty member to know that, but is something that we all as a community need to know to ensure that we can help our students fulfill their dreams. So that's a little bit about myself, and I want to ensure that there's time for all of you who have taken the time this afternoon to be here to ask questions. So not everybody at the same time. Anybody? Who's the brave soul that wants to ask the first question? And it can be you, because you asked a lot of questions. No, just kidding. Anybody? Yes, sir.
Last night, when you were talking to the board, you
Sir.
talked about the importance of empathy and compassion as a part of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. When we were talking last night about leadership style and what type of leader are you, I subscribe myself to the belief that we are all servant leaders, because otherwise we wouldn't do the work we do. But I believe and I subscribe to the philosophy of being a compassionate leader. And a compassionate leader is a leader that is not only empathetic, but acts on whatever the situation is. Let me give you an example. And that's the example that I shared with the board last night. In my institution, my current institution, we do a lot of surveys and we ask for a lot of feedback. Some of the feedback that we were getting from employees that did not have supervisory responsibilities was that, hey, there are no leadership development opportunities for me. There's a leadership development program for individuals who supervise people. But for those of us who don't supervise, there isn't anything. And our philosophy is a leader in every seat. So how can we then fulfill that promise? So we got that feedback in the survey, and then I talked to my own staff and said, hey, how do you feel about this? And they're like, yes, there's a problem. I don't have an opportunity. I also would want to be prepared for the next step. If there's a supervisory job, I would like to be able to apply for it, but it's always well, you don't have enough experience, or you don't know about this, et cetera, et cetera. So I got with our organizational behavior, our HR unit, to then develop a leadership program for those individuals who were not in supervisory roles that otherwise wouldn't have been able to qualify. So this is just an example of what I believe a compassionate leader does. You get information, you're empathetic, I feel what you're saying, I understand what you're saying, but just understanding it is not enough. You gotta do something about it. So that compassionate leader listens to what's going on, but acts on it. So that's my philosophy in terms of compassionate leadership. Yes, sir.
After a day and a half exposing the crowd,
Mm-hmm.
where do you see future opportunities for the college?
Well, I think I was very impressed with the Joplin Center that we went this morning. The equipment is fantastic. And we are starting at my college now an advanced manufacturing program. And the equipment that you have is first class, and that is expensive, top of the line equipment. So there is potential for, is there an opportunity for more spaces, more people participating in that program? And Michelle, I don't think she's here, but Michelle is the name of the director, right, of that center. And she was, Melissa, Michelle, see, I am all confused now. Melissa was saying yes, that there is capacity, that they would like to bring in more people. So that's an opportunity. We also have, for example, health programs. You have nursing, and there are a lot of jobs in nursing. Is there an opportunity to expand the capacity of those programs? Logistics is another opportunity. You have a trucking certificate or credential, but there's also the potential, or in the near future, of becoming a transportation center that will be happening, said in a few months. So the opportunity for logistics, there are a variety of jobs in that logistics range of occupations. And they are all start from, minimum wage to highly paid positions. I truly believe that it is our role not only to educate students, but to ensure that there is a good paying job at the end of the journey. Because otherwise, why are we then telling people, hey, come over, get a degree, take a loan, and get out of here, and, right? Get out of here and make as much money as if you would just got out of high school and taken a job. A conversation I had last night with the board we talked about the fact that unemployment is low, but poverty is high. So what does that tell you? Individuals have several jobs, but they're low-paying jobs. So how do we then demonstrate the value added of a Crowder education? And that's a marketing effort. There are a lot of examples. Again, an individual at Joplin today mentioned that she had a student that graduated from the Microsoft IT program and has a job in Google. So that's the kind of thing that then you advertise and you tell the world, hey, this individual got their qualifications and their education here, and they're at Google. What does that say? It's a good education. It's a quality education. You can do the same. It's kind of how do we message the value of education, and that's important. And it's everybody's job to do that. But we need to be more purposeful, and we need to ensure that whatever we offer, there is a job, a living wage at the end of the day. Because if not, are we truly doing the students a disservice? And that's a question to be asked. Yes, ma'am.
I think I read in some of your material that you practice participatory budgeting.
Yes.
Can you tell us?
Sure. Participatory budgeting is a practice that was started in a municipality in Chicago. And this is what it's all about. So you have your budget, right, which, as probably for most of you, is kind of like this nebulous thing that I really don't know how I get my money, but I get some money, and I'm not really sure. But in an effort, it was when we had a new president a few years ago, one of his directives to me was, please make sure that the budget becomes a more transparent process, that people understand where the money comes from, where the money goes, that they feel they have a say in terms of how we spend it. So participatory budgeting, what we do is we set aside a certain amount of money from the operating budget. It's not a lot. And what we do is we ask faculty and staff to propose projects that are sustainable, that they might want to, implement. And then the faculty and staff vote on the projects. So just to give you an example, I think the first year we put aside, I think was $25,000. And no project could be more than $5,000. So there were, 5 projects. We've had a patio built on a part of campus where a lot of the faculty and staff sit out and have lunch. Or we also use it for events. We have a early college high school that lives on our campus, and we have a very large dual credit and early college high school population that comes on campus every day to take classes. So the dual enrollment staff put up a proposal together for outdoor furniture, that it was actually an outdoor classroom. It had a blackboard and it had seats outside so the students can be outside and have a class. So we've had a variety of those things. The art faculty wanted to do something with outdoor furniture. They wanted to make sure it was colorful. I don't know if you've ever seen a photo of Harvard Yard. Then they have that metal furniture of different colors. They wanted something like that, and it was voted upon, and we have some of that. So that's what participatory budgeting is all about. And it has been very successful. People are very engaged, and now we have expanded it to include students. So now we have a certain amount of money that is set aside for student projects, and generally we started with student clubs because they are a little bit more organized and they have, a president and et cetera, et cetera. So we used that venue to introduce participatory budgeting. Now it's open to all students, and people vote, and they're excited. So it fulfilled the objective of demystifying budgeting a little bit. Not completely, but a little bit. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Can you tell us about your experience with college access programs, specifically for first-generation, low-income students and minority students, and then what have you done to support the success of those programs?
That's more than one question. Okay, so in my campus, we have a lot of TRIO programs. We have Upward Bound math and science. We have, I am actually currently the grant director for a STEM grant. And we're a Hispanic serving institution. So most of the grants that we have are for low-income minority students. And in the particular case of the one that I manage, is to increase the pipeline of minority and underserved populations that enter the STEM field. So we have some scholarship dollars. We also support summer camps for children. We reach all the way to middle school. So we have free summer camps for kids that are paid through the grant. We have speaker series. We have professional development for both faculty and staff. So we do a lot in terms of that. In terms of access, early college high school for us has been a huge access point. We had a conversation this morning about dual credit and early college. And in Texas, the legislature has expanded dual credit to the freshman year. So now a freshman in high school can start taking dual credit. Now, it's a little bit difficult because sometimes students are not college ready yet. So that's a little bit of a difficulty. And in the case of my college, we don't charge for dual credit. It's free. There is a cost share arrangement. I'm not really sure who calculated the cost share because we're not sharing a lot of the costs. And the reality is that it's also, you cannibalize the pipeline of students because those students that take dual credit and dual enrollment are usually high achieving students that you could then bring onto your college and they could enroll with you. But I mentioned this morning, this past May, we had, like 168 kids that graduated with an associate's degree and a high school diploma. For the community we serve, that's a big deal. We have a community that is mainly first generation. Some of the zip codes that we serve have double the poverty rate, the national poverty rate. So for that population, it's a big deal. And we continue to do it, and we have the commitment of our board to continue to provide access. We'll figure it out, the dollars, as we go. But yeah, absolutely.
You talked last night about the importance of a new leader engaging in
Appreciative inquiry.
appreciative inquiry.
We talked about it earlier today with somebody. I can't remember who I talked to. Yes, sometimes the tendency as humans is to talk about the things that we don't do very well, right? We didn't, we had a goal of so much persistence, and they didn't persist, and so much enrollment, and we fell short, and so many classes making, and they didn't make, et cetera, et cetera. But we don't stop to think about the things that we do well. What are the things that we do well? That's the story behind the numbers that I talked about earlier. It's important to stop and think about what are the things that we do well, and how can we emulate that experience elsewhere. Not everything is going to be perfect all the time, but stopping and thinking about the things that you do well that you can emulate later on, or things that, okay, what was happening in that point in time that allowed us to be successful at X? What was that? And try to replicate that. Is it always a good thing? Yes. Is it always something that you're going to be able to replicate? No. But stopping and thinking about the things that you do well, to me, is probably more important than stopping and thinking about the things that you didn't do well, because that you repeat to yourself all the time. Those of you who are recruiters, if there are any recruiters in the house, if you're a recruiter and you're like, I was supposed to have 30 students, and only 5 showed up. Oh my God, what did I do wrong, right? Instead of thinking, well, the last time I was supposed to have 20 and I have 15. Well, what did I do? What happened then? What can I learn from that? That's what I think is important as a new leader, to listen and say, well, what are the stories? What are the things that we do well? Because that way you can also develop a shared vision of where you want to go. If you just concentrate on, well, we didn't do this, and we didn't do this, and we didn't do that, all you want to do is go home and cry. And that's never productive, because we're here for a purpose. And students come here because you give them something that they've been looking for. And that's important. You're shy people.
During our lunch, we talked about Kool-Aid a lot earlier, right?
Okay? Yes.
So you asked us,
Yes.
how do we handle, how does this institution handle individuals who aren't ready to drink the Kool-Aid?
Yes.
And then I asked you, how do you handle individuals who
Yes.
aren't ready to drink the Kool-Aid? So another question following up with the metaphor, how as a leader do you involve the community and staff in making the Kool-Aid that we all within would drink?
Well, pick the flavor of the Kool-Aid? Is that what you want to do? Essentially, yes, absolutely. And I think it follows to what I was just saying, right? Is if we can talk about, if we as a community can figure out what is our shared vision, what is that we want to do, how do we envision helping the community that we're here to serve? If there is a collective understanding of what that is, then we all have a collective understanding of the expectations that we're setting for ourselves, and that we can hold one another accountable, because that's part of the Kool-Aid to me. It's not just, yes, we want to, help people and we want people to graduate, great, but how do we hold one another accountable? How do we make sure that things are done the way they should be done? How do we ensure that the image we're portraying of this institution outside is the right image? Because we want to make sure that people want to come back and say, hey, I want to go there, or I went there, or I want my kids to go there. I will recommend it to somebody else. So having a shared vision, I think that's the way of picking the flavor of the Kool-Aid, because the Kool-Aid is going to be there no matter what. So there are people that are not going to want to participate, and I have, through the years, sometimes banged my head against the wall going, come on, why can you want to participate? There are people that are just not going to, and it's okay. And I think arriving at that realization that not everybody is going to want to play, it's okay. But those that do want to play, it's important to provide people the opportunity to participate. Then you choose, I want to or I don't want to participate. But having that conversation allows us all then to have a say in the flavor of the Kool-Aid. See, now I'm going to have Kool-Aid. And I don't have Kool-Aid. Anybody else? Yes, no? Shy. There you go.
Thank you.
Go. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Happy Thanksgiving.